See if you can figure it out. This is me frustrated with you for not being here.
I know.
Hopefully that little exercise was helpful to you. Normally, I would like you have your cameras today and actually go out and practice for the rest of the period doing this stuff. We're settling for a few selfies on a cell phone before we move on to the next part of a whole different lesson. Yay! So today, welcome to class. Today we will be discussing the documentary film and the art of the interview. So yesterday, about 5 minutes ago, we talked about all of the technical rules and aspects of creating a professional-looking interview. All of the technical things, all of the skills, all of the things that you have to worry about and think about when you are piecing together your documentary footage. There was a lot there. Some of you probably found it to be somewhat overwhelming. Don't worry, I've shared those slides with you. Today, we'll be discussing the art of the interview. This is as important, or maybe perhaps more so. Because, again, I'll stress this again, while your skills are going to be growing dramatically over the course of this unit, documentaries by nature are more technically forgiving than narratives because you don't have to suspend people's disbelief. So even though I want you to grow and get better in your technical skills, and this project will push you in that direction, documentaries, even if you screw up and make a mistake, if you have good content, you might still have a good documentary despite the fact that you screwed up. Right? That's kind of the reality of the way documentaries go. So it's kind of a catch-22. You're going to get better and it's going to test your skills, but if you screw up, you might still have good content if you have good interviews. And getting good interviews all comes down to your ability to conduct an interview. So today we'll be discussing how do you get good content? How do you get good interviews? So we're going to put all that skill and technical stuff in the back of our head for a minute. And we're going to focus on how do you actually get good content, because that's what's going to make your documentary good more than anything else. You can have a documentary that looks as pretty as can be, but if people don't have something interesting to say, it's going to be boring. You are not going to have a good documentary. On the other hand, you can have a documentary that looks like trash, but the content is good. The story is king, right? You can have a good documentary that way. So, what makes a quality documentary interview? Think about it for a second. Raise your hand and tell me what you think. Yeah. Content.
Yeah.
What makes a good documentary interview?
Look pretty.
Gotta look pretty, right? Talked about that yesterday. Yeah.
Knowing what emotions you want to capture.
Okay. So what do you mean?
Based on what questions you ask, what emotions you want to capture.
Okay. Yeah.
That the interview is not really scary and just really static, but more that it's moving, really getting the person who's watching that documentary into it.
Excellent. Yeah.
Maybe knowing, having a theme that you want to find out beforehand, so that you kind of know what you want from the story.
Okay. A direction, a path to follow. Yeah.
Different types of shots.
Different kinds of shots, some variety in there visually. Yeah. Nick, do you have another point?
No.
No. All right. This is a quote by Ken Burns, our favorite documentarian.
Yeah, he's the guy that does the moving.
I know Mr. Freeman does not like Ken Burns. I like Ken Burns. He did the baseball documentary. All right. He said, "The way I work, the interview never becomes larger than the person being interviewed." Okay? That is a fancy way of saying pay more attention to the person that you're interviewing than anything else. The most important thing that you need to remember when you are doing your interviews is the person being interviewed. Okay? That might be difficult when you're trying to remember all of those other things that I just taught you. Oh, but I got to do the camera right, and it needs to be the right distance, and I have to put it at eye level, and there's some lighting thing that I have to do, and what did he say about long side and short side, and I got to make sure they're on the rule of thirds, and this shot's not going to work because there's a tree in the background and it's growing out of their head. There's so many things to think about. Don't neglect the person that you're interviewing. They are the most important thing there, because if you don't have good content, you don't have a documentary.
Yeah.
Okay? So all of those things, we're going to practice those things so they become second nature, so that you just know those things intuitively after a while. But we want you to really focus on the interviewer, because every interview is different. You can't just know an interview person intuitively, like you're gonna intuitively learn rule of thirds and lighting and all that kind of stuff. Right? Every interview is different. They are the most important part of your shoot, always and forever. Alright, so obtaining quality interviews. We're going to talk about getting truthful responses. We're going to talk about getting sound bites that give you freedom when editing and post. We're going to talk about being prepared. You need to make a plan. Alright? And you need to prepare thoughtful questions, and you need to let things develop organically. So, we're going to start with getting truthful responses. Build relationships of trust well before the interview. The most important thing you can do to get good quality content is to have them trust you. Okay? If they don't trust you, they are not going to tell you anything insightful. They're not going to tell you anything personal. Some of you are doing documentaries that might potentially have personal information in them. We've had documentaries in the past that were deeply personal in nature. Okay? If they don't trust you, why on earth are they going to share their deepest moments with you? Right? You need to build a relationship of trust. Ideally, you're going to build this relationship of trust well before your actual interview. So be professional, please, in all of your communication. When you email these people, you should sound like a professional. It is important, it is imperative that you learn how to craft a professional email. Okay? Hey, I want to come interview you for a school project. Lols. It'll be awesome.
Is that what we sound
Thanks,
like?
dude. Some of you write me very unprofessional emails. Just saying.
All the time.
Ben writes very professional emails when he emails me 5 times a day.
He has a lot of
It's because he has a lot of practice.
Yeah.
Because he has a lot of practice. All right, be professional in your communication. Okay, you will be more likely to get a response. You will be more likely to be respected, and you are more likely to be trusted, so that you get good quality content. It matters. It actually matters. Okay, so be professional when you communicate with the people that you are interviewing. If you can, meet them ahead of schedule. It's a very low stakes environment for you to get to know someone. So, for example, if you show up on the day of the interview with all of your equipment, that might be overwhelming for someone who you've never met before. And now you've got to build that relationship of trust while you're worrying about setting up the camera, while you're worrying about setting up the audio, while you're sitting down and asking them questions for the very first time. They're just meeting you, they're not that comfortable with you, you're not going to get as good responses. Now, if you're doing a documentary on the ice cream shop, right? Can you drop by the ice cream shop, introduce yourself, maybe you've already emailed them, hey, my name's Matt, I'm the guy that's going to be interviewing you. Yeah, that's great. Oh no, we're not doing anything today, I just wanted to come by and introduce myself, just so you had a face to put with the emails, it's nice to meet you, I'm really excited about this project. Are there any questions that I can answer for you right now? Great, that's awesome. Yeah, again, we're meeting next week, really looking forward to it. Thanks so much for giving your time, really appreciate it, and you're done. And now all of a sudden, they were really nice. Like, now I have a face to recognize when they come in the door. Right? That can go a long way. Just that little interaction ahead of time. Now, some people that's not going to work. If you're interviewing like the CEO of some big company, they might be really busy. So don't force your way in the door just to get some face time if they're busy. You want to be respectful of people's time. Be professional with your appearance. How you dress matters. It really does. It really does. Okay? Don't show up in your flannel pajama pants. Okay? Pisses me off when you do it at school. Don't do it in an interview. Okay? How you dress actually matters. It says something about you. Okay? If you care about this interview, and you should, then you should care enough to look professional when you conduct the interview. Okay? I'm not saying you have to wear a suit and tie or a dress or whatever. I'm not saying that. I'm saying dress the part. Dress the part. Look professional. Look professional. Okay? You can interpret that as you wish. Okay? But it helps. Being presentable helps. Okay? Give the background of the project. When you were emailing these people, when you were meeting with them ahead of time, give them a little bit of background of the project. Explain it to them. Say, oh yeah, we're doing this documentary project. We're going to conduct a number of interviews. This is kind of what we're interested in, but we're going to see how the story develops as well. We want to ask questions, about this and about this, that kind of stuff. Just give them a basic idea of what the project is, how long the documentary will be, so they have a rough idea of kind of maybe what the final image might look like. Yeah, Nina.
didn't we do like the observational log for English? Like it all went to them and got it sent. Isn't that?
Yeah, a lot of that was probably
Because
in here.
like I also like for mine, I like showed them work we did. I showed them the narrative film
Great.
and stuff.
Great,
And like explain what freestyle is and stuff, and like send him the links from freestyle.
good, good.
And they were like super insistent on that.
Yeah, so it's a great, yeah. Showing of your past work is a good way to go about doing that. Anything, basically, anything you can do to build this relationship of trust. You need them to trust you. You need them to believe in you. Okay? Why are you interviewing them? This seems like a no-brainer, but sometimes we forget. Okay? Why are you interviewing me? I don't understand. Why are you interviewing me? Well, we want a perspective, your perspective, on this particular subject because of X or because of Y. Okay? So be thinking about, explain to them their connection to whatever larger topic that you're talking about. Oh, we want to interview you because you frequent this particular store and you have a lot of experience, being in and out of the doors, and you have an understanding of the community and atmosphere that this particular place has. And okay, that helps frame their responses, right? Okay? Build rapport, okay? When I'm setting up the camera before I do an interview, hey, how's your day? How are things going? Oh, that's really, really cool. Oh yeah, I got a story for you. I was working on this thing today. Build rapport. It's small talk, but it makes them comfortable. It makes them feel comfortable with you. Like, build that rapport. Become their friend, okay? You will get more truthful responses if they trust you. That is just a human nature thing. Like, you will get better quality responses, more comfortable responses, if they trust you. So build rapport. Value their time. Okay, a big CEO is not going to have a lot of time for you. Okay, years ago, we had a student who interviewed Lou Wolf, owner of the Oakland A's. They had a very limited window in which to interview him. And I said, this is awesome, you take every minute you can get, but you value that man's time. And they did. They shot the entire hour and then very promptly left and thanked him for his time. Okay, so if you are, whomever you are interviewing, be very valuable, respect their time. If they say they have an hour, you have an hour. Okay? If they say they have 10 minutes, you probably don't have enough time to shoot them and schedule something else. Okay? So be respectful of their time. Don't tell them 10 minutes and then be there for an hour. You'll never get back for that follow-up interview. Okay? So be respectful of their time. Thank them for their time. You cannot thank these people enough. Like, go over the top with your thank yous. Just thank you so much, I really appreciate it, so on and so forth. Do not, there is a temptation here, do not give them your interview questions ahead of time. They will ask for them. Politely say no.
Sorry.
Okay? And here's why. Here's why. You do not want scripted answers to your questions. They sound forced, they don't sound genuine, and they are not truthful. Okay? You want truthful, honest, genuine responses to your questions. So you can give them topics that you're going to cover. Say, oh, well, we're going to talk to you about your store, we're going to talk to you about your clientele, we're going to talk to you about the history, about how you developed this idea, stuff like that. Well, can I have the questions? Find some way to get around it. No, we haven't really written them yet, or something. Don't give them the questions. Years ago, there was a student who's doing a documentary on social media. There was a startup company who was CEO of this social media company. And the CEO, because she was a CEO, wanted questions because she wanted to know exactly what she was going to be asked. And I said, don't do it, don't give her the questions. And she broke and she gave her the questions. The interview ended up being a CEO with a laptop in front of her as she read her responses to the questions. Okay? Do not give them the questions. Some of them are just trying to help you. They think they're trying to help you. Well, I'm just trying to get my ideas ready for you so it's good. They're trying so hard to get... No. This should be a natural, organic conversation developing. Authentic responses, okay? Don't give them the questions. You can give them topics. Say, I'm going to ask you about this, I'm going to ask you about this. Some of the questions are just going to happen organic. It's a very organic conversation. It's more conversational. It's not very formal. I'm going to ask you about this topic and this topic and this topic. But some questions, will just happen spur of the moment there. So let them know that it's an organic, developing conversation. Okay? All right. So, hang on, let me see. I want to make sure I covered everything. Okay, I think we're good. All right, so right before your interview, again, be professional. Are you noticing a theme? Yes, you should. Be professional. So right before the interview, when you're setting up the camera, be professional. Hi, hello, thanks again so much for taking your time. We really appreciate it. We're going to set up the camera here. My partner here is going to attend to you. So you're setting up the camera, and your partner is just go ahead and sit here. We're going to position you right here. I think that's going to look good. How's your day? How are things going? Oh, that's great. Oh, thanks so much. Yeah, we're going to ask you about this and this and this today. Make small talk, build rapport, all that stuff, but maintain your professional atmosphere, okay? Now is not the time to be checking your Snapchat. Now is not the time to be hearting on Instagram, okay? Hearting. Hearting. I just made that up. That's a new thing. Okay? All right? Be professional, okay? Talk while you set up. Set the ground rules. This one's important. Set the ground rules. So back here on my other slide, I talked about getting sound bites that give you freedom when editing in post. This is one of the ground rules that you need to set up, okay? So for example, if I'm interviewing someone, all right, you need to set the ground rules. Because you don't want this guy again, right? Right? We don't want that. So you're going to set the ground rules and say, hey, thanks so much for taking your time. Layla, I want you to look directly at me, so don't worry about the camera. You don't need to look at the camera. We're just going to have a conversation, so you can just look at me. Don't worry about my partner. You don't need to look at him. So I'm the one asking you questions, so you can just keep looking at me, and that's fine. For this particular response, I'm looking for like a 30-second response, so you don't feel like you have to go on forever. You know, that's a good thing to tell someone if you have someone who's a long-winded person. Okay, so if I'm talking to Nick, and Nick starts telling the story and it goes on for 5 minutes, here's where you have to kind of balance your professionalism with what you actually need, okay? I don't want to cut off Nick and be like, Nick, dude, shut up. Right, that's not going to help, right? That's not going to help anything. But that might be a great, when he's finished, or when there's an opening for me to get in, right? I might be like, Nick, wow, that's super cool. Wow, thanks for sharing that story. That's awesome. Do you think you could tell that story again, but in like 30 seconds? Like, it's going to give me more freedom when I'm editing, and it's going to be like a little more concise, and I think that'll really help in the finished product. And now Nick's excited because I liked his story, right? And now Nick's going to give me that same story in 30 seconds, and that's going to be great. Oh, Nick, that was awesome. I really like that response. Do you think you could give me that again in like 10 seconds? Just boil it down to like 1 or 2 sentences. And now Nick's like, oh, he really likes my stuff, you know? Like, he's feeling pretty good about himself. The best thing that you can do is make your interview feel really good, okay? Because the more good and more comfortable they feel, the better off your responses are going to be. But set the ground rules. Make sure they know where to look, where not to look. Make sure they know not to fidget or slouch, right? Okay? And if you need longer or shorter responses, gently pull that out of them by telling them kind of how long their responses should be. You know, sometimes people are going to say, you know, so tell me about how you built your business. It started in 1964. Sorry. Hey, wait, hang on. Could you reframe the question in your response? Got it. Most people understand that. We started the business in 1964 or whatever it is, right? Sometimes you're going to need that. And you can say that. Say, oh, can you please reframe the question in your response? It's going to help me when I edit it in post. People will understand that, right? Because they're not going to hear your voice. Your voice isn't going to be in the documentary. They're not going to hear the question. They're just going to hear the response. So you got to include that in the response, right? All right. So where should they look? To whom should they speak? How is your shot framed? How much can they move? Sometimes it's helpful to them to flip that screen around and just be like, here's where you are, so they know that if they move too far this way or too far this way, they're going to be out of frame. Okay? By the way, if you're doing close-ups or really tight, extreme close-ups, you probably want somebody on that camera to like swivel the tripod, because if they move even a little bit, they're either going to exit the frame or they're going to go out of focus. So keep that in mind. Should their response include your question? We just talked about that. How long should their response be? Again, you can coach them as you go. Some people will be really good at this right away. Some people are going to talk way too much or too little. They're going to, yes, no. Okay,
Elaborate.
great. Can you elaborate with that? I deal with this with kids. If you ever interview
No, I
kids,
can't.
like you shouldn't interview kids, but if you do interview kids, you'll get a lot of like, yes, no, sometimes, stuff like that. Sometimes I find that you can frame your question in different ways. Tell me the story, because people understand stories, right? Kids understand stories. They have a beginning and a middle and an end. Tell me the story of how, you did this or that or whatever. And then people understand like, oh, I have to tell the story. Like there's more than just a yes or no response, right? So how you frame your question can be helpful. Warm them up. Start with your easy questions. Start with the simple, easy questions. It'll help make them comfortable and it'll warm them up. Okay? Save the important questions, the big questions, the right questions. Save those ones for when you feel it's appropriate. It might be at the very end. It might be somewhere in the middle. But start with the really easy questions. Hey, what's your name? Just tell us your name.
I'm Ben.
I'm just going to get some audio levels here. These questions really don't matter. Just go ahead and tell me your name.
Ben.
And what do you do here?
I work on.
Panic.
I cut wood.
Awesome, you cut wood. Yeah, this is sounding pretty good. This is looking and sounding pretty good. You're doing a great job. Thanks so much. Tell me about your day today. I'm just getting some audio levels here. Tell me about your day today.
So I came to the office with my axe and I chopped 3 blocks of wood today, and they paid me.
How long does it take to chop wood like that?
It takes about 5 minutes.
So sorry, could you reframe the question
I'm
in your
sorry.
response? That's all right. How long does it
for
take
a
to
guy like me with a big axe like I have, it takes about 5 minutes to chop a block of wood. But someone else with a smaller axe and smaller arms, probably 15, 20 minutes to chop wood.
Excellent. That's a great response. Thanks so much.
You're welcome.
See how that works? Then you gotta build. All of a sudden, Ben's feeling pretty good about himself, as you can tell.
You got me
Okay.
feeling very
Feel
confident.
very confident. Very confident. So when I start talking about some really heavy stuff with Ben, Ben's trusting me a little bit more now. Okay? He's having fun. He's trusting me. It's become a good conversation. So warm them up with the good, easy, simple questions. You can start with things like, what's your name? What's your title? What do you do here? How was your day? Things that really don't matter. You're not going to use that stuff in your documentary. But it's just to warm them up and to get them comfortable. Some of these people that you interview, this will be like their first time on camera. Some of these people will have never really been in front of a camera before. That could be really intimidating to some people. Some people, like the CEOs and the CFOs, the marketing people, they do this all the time. They're going to be great from the get-go. But some people are going to be nervous. They want to do a good job for you. You're a student, and I want it to be good. I don't want to say the wrong thing, and I'm not really comfortable in front of a camera. Some people are going to be uncomfortable, and it's going to take them a while to get there. Make them feel comfortable. Start with the really easy stuff that you know you're not going to use, but it can help warm them up quite a bit. And then save those big questions. The right question, save those big questions for key moments when you're ready. So during the interview, be professional. Be professional. Make them feel safe, make them feel comfortable. Is this person an expert? Okay? They might be. Again, a CEO is going to be used to being in front of the camera. Some other people aren't. Is this an emotional piece? If it is, that means you really need that relationship of trust, right? Value their time, so on and so forth. Start with throwaway questions. Know your audience and terminology. Years ago, I did a documentary. I helped with a documentary. They called me because they'd never done a documentary before. And they had me on set. They were interviewing a girl who had muscular sclerosis. And every 6 to 8 weeks, she had to go through this kind of treatment. I don't remember what the term was. But she had to go through this type of treatment, and during that time it was really difficult for her. She was not very mobile until the treatment was through, and then once she had the treatment, she was a lot more mobile and she could get around and kind of stuff. Anyway, there was a very specific scientific name for this treatment. I don't remember what it was. So we're interviewing this girl. It's an emotional piece. She's talking about the hardships that she goes through as she's dealing with muscular sclerosis, which is a big deal, right? And she's talking about this treatment over and over and over again. But it's a very scientific word. So we get done with a question, and I kind of stopped for a moment, and this is why they had me there. And I stopped for a moment and I said, hey, you know, you're doing a great job. Like, this is clearly like a big deal. Like, she was emotional, she was crying. I said, hey, you're doing a really good job. Everything looks really good. You're doing great. I'm wondering, you know, we're talking a lot about you know, this procedure. You know, a lot of people who are not familiar with your, you know, this type of thing aren't going to, hi,
Can I interrupt for just 2 seconds?
2 seconds. I'm doing 2 lessons today.
Okay, I'm just saying Happy Valentine's to everybody.
Happy Valentine's, everybody.
Yeah.
Quick. Happy Valentine's, Happy Valentine's, Happy Valentine's. I'm trying to do this in
Thank
2
you, thank you,
seconds.
Valentine's.
2 seconds,
Thank you.
not quite 2, but I'm doing as fast as I can.
Thank you, camera.
That's awesome.
Happy Valentine's, oops, sorry. Okay, sorry, bye.
Thanks, Miss B.
Thank
you, Miss
Miss.
B.
Happy Valentine's Day.
Okay.
Sorry, Elena, you missed the candy.
All right. So know your audience and terminology. I said to the girl, hey, you know, a lot of people who are unfamiliar with this procedure are not going to know what you mean when you say this name. Like, I hadn't heard this term before today. I'm wondering if maybe we should just refer to this procedure as your treatment. I think that's a word that everyone can kind of understand. Some of you are going to be interviewing people on very particular subjects, and they're going to use words that you might know because you're interested in this stuff. And they know because they're an expert about this stuff. But the average viewer may not have heard before. So think about that. Who is your audience? Okay? If you show something in class, are we all going to understand the language and the terminology of whatever it is you're talking about? If you're doing a documentary on skateboarding, for example, Becca, you had an idea about doing one of those. If you're doing a documentary about skateboarding, and the skateboarder's talking about, oh, I did this wicked nose grind, it was awesome, right? Okay? I know what a nose grind is. That's a thing, right?
Yeah.
But a lot of people might not. A lot of people might not know what a nose grind is. So either we need to explain that during the course of the interview somewhere, or show it when he says nose grind so I can see, oh, that's what that is, right? So I can show that with B-roll, or we need to refer to it as something else. I was doing a really cool trick. It's not like super hard, but it was a pretty good one.
The nose
And-
trick.
Yeah. And then you can refer to it later on if you explain it. So know your language, know your audience, and use the correct terminology that is appropriate for whatever audience you have that's going to be watching your film. Again, the person and their comfort is most important. The interview can do no wrong. Okay, no matter how bad they are. No matter how bad they are. Man, you're doing a great job. You're just doing great. I really appreciate it. You're doing awesome. I actually messed up here. This is my fault. Do you think we could ask you this question again? And this time, I'm thinking maybe like a 30-second response would be great. You're doing great. You're doing a great job, man. Thanks so much. Okay? They can do no wrong. If they're looking the wrong way, if they're not paying attention, like try to get them to focus on you in such a way that it's not their fault.
It's my fault.
Okay? All right? You know, like try to keep them on you, you know, keep that conversation. Because as soon as they feel like they're screwing up, it's going to turn bad. As soon as it's going to stop being fun, they're not going to be comfortable. As soon as they feel like they're messing things up, they're going to start to get nervous, they're going to tighten up. You're not going to get the truthful responses. You're not going to get authentic, genuine, emotional responses. Okay? So make sure that they feel comfortable. It's the most important thing. It's the most important thing. Okay? Let them tell their story. You'll hear things that you didn't expect. Find the story. I'm going to talk about that here in a minute. Okay. One more thing about them doing no wrong. Again, they're the most important thing, so really pay attention to them. This is why you have a partner. Okay? So can you imagine? So if I'm interviewing Ben. Ben, tell me about how much freestyle means to you.
Oh, you're okay.
Okay.
Freestyle means a lot to me because it's like.
Oh no, keep going. You're fine. Go ahead.
Just pay attention to me.
I'm working on. I just got to check the audio levels here.
Well,
Keep talking. You're doing great.
So I like freestyle.
Yeah.
It's a lot of fun.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So do you see how like you're not going to get a good response if I'm worried about this camera and I'm worried about this camera and I got to check the audio. This is why you have two people. Okay? You can't do this by yourself. Some of you tried to do a documentary by yourself and I shot it down very, very quickly. Okay? You cannot do it by yourself. You need to pay 100% of your attention to that person being interviewed, or you will not have good content. And you're doing 2 cameras and audio. That means one of you is going to be sitting there paying attention to the interview, and the other one is going to have 3 pieces of machinery to keep track of. That's a lot. That's a lot.
Yeah.
Okay? Now, one of you who's doing the interview could probably take the audio recorder. You could probably have the audio recorder on your lap and just kind of glance down at it as you're asking questions, because that's, once you hit that and it's going right, you don't need to worry about that so much. And the other person can do 2 cameras, because they're right next to each other, and they can stand there and keep their eyes on both of them, like so. Camera 1, camera 2. Camera 1, camera 2.
I thought camera 1 was on the right.
Well, it depends.
Oh, it does depend.
Depends.
Don't worry about
Oh.
In broadcast, it always goes left to right. Camera 1 is always on the left, and camera 2 is always on the right, when you're in broadcast. Which really frustrates me in baseball, because camera 1's on the third base side, and camera 2 is on the first base side. Drives me crazy.
it. Camera 1 in center field.
But whatever. It is what it is. Yeah, and camera 2's in center field, or whatever. Okay, so pay attention to your interviewee. You have a partner, and you have a partner for a reason. So let them tell their story. You're going to hear things that you didn't expect to hear. Okay? You're going to have all of these questions that you wrote. All of these questions that you wrote. Where I'm talking to Ben, the woodsman, and he's going to tell me about his business, and all of a sudden, I start discovering new things about Ben and his business that I didn't anticipate.
I still love the accent.
And Ben's telling me how, as a young child, he was fascinated by wood. Because his grandfather used to have him come over at his house, and they would carve wood together. And his love of wood came through this relationship with his grandfather. I never would have known this. I have these questions here that I prepared, 15 questions. None of them is about his family relationships. None of them is about his grandfather. I need to be comfortable throwing away my questions and pursuing this interesting thread that I have discovered. Okay? Because this is way more interesting. You need to let them tell your story. Oh, that's really cool about your grandfather. Tell me about your average day at work. You're like, no. Like, let's focus on that. That's interesting. That's a story beneath the story, all right? It's okay to go off script. The questions are there as a safety net. The questions are there because you wanted to prepare. The questions are there so that if you don't have anywhere else to go, you've got your questions. You should feel very comfortable putting your questions aside and following whatever direction your interview takes you, because you will find amazing things. I've had documentaries completely change because they started with one thing and their interviews went in a different direction, and all of a sudden it was like, this is way cooler than what I was going to talk about. I'm doing this now. And that's fine, that's okay, that's great, because it's more exciting and it's more dramatic. So make sure that you listen. Make sure that you listen and ask the right question. Years ago, I got a good story for this. Years ago, I was working at a private school in the summers. I was teaching Photoshop classes and all this kind of stuff. So I was teaching over the summer. There was this cute secretary that I kind of had a thing for. And every day after school,
Wait, the story beneath
Tell
the
me
story.
more.
hang on. So every day after school, I would go and you know, they had Jolly Ranchers at the secretary's table, so I'd go get some Jolly Ranchers, you know, for obvious. I don't even like Jolly Ranchers that much, but I'd go get some Jolly Ranchers, and I would, you know, talk with this secretary because she was fun and great and all this kind of stuff, and I liked her. And so I'd sit there and I'd talk to her, and for the first little while, it was all just really small talk. Hey, how's things going? How's work going? How's the new job? You know, is it going okay? You know, all that kind of stuff. And she'd sit there and she'd do her work, and I'd eat my Jolly Ranchers, and I'd leave, and that was the end of that. One day, I'm sitting there talking to her. Same old thing. Like, she's sitting there typing on her computer, doing her thing. I'm sitting there eating some lemon Jolly Ranchers, which is, by the way, the best flavor of Jolly
Lemon?
Ranchers.
No.
Absolutely
Lemon.
lemon. Absolutely lemon. So I'm sitting there eating my Jolly Ranchers, and all of a sudden, I asked her a question. I don't even remember what the question was. I think it was something about, like, her experiences in high school or what she was like. I asked the right question because all of a sudden she's sitting there typing, she's working, she's typing. All of a sudden she stops, completely stops. The typing stops. She looks up. She kind of scoots forward and she starts telling me all about this experience when she was in high school, about how she was this troubled teen and how, like, her parents were really worried about her and she was always getting into trouble. And then they shipped her off to boarding school. And then, you know, like it completely changed her life, and she was no longer having these aspirations to spend her life working as a Hooters girl, but now she was gonna like live her life in such a way that she could make a difference for people. Like it was this huge like thing, and I was sitting there like, whoa! Like all of a sudden she started confiding in me like these really personal things that I had no idea were there. And it all happened because I had built this relationship of trust with her over a period of time, and I had, at the right moment, I asked the right question. And all of a sudden I knew her on a completely different level than I had previously. And then like a week or two later, you know, we're talking and I referenced something about like her high school experience or whatever, and she kind of laughed and shook her head. She said, I can't believe I told you all that. And I was like, yeah, but you did. Because I asked the right question. Because I listened.
Did you guys get married?
Wait, how did it go? Are you guys?
Nothing ever happened.
Oh.
You guys
Because I listened. Because I listened and I asked the right question.
You
Okay?
blew it.
You are going to have good questions, important questions that you prepare for on your piece of paper. Sometimes the right question will be there on your piece of paper. Sometimes the right question will not be on your piece of paper. It will be in response to something that they said. You're going to be pulling at a thread, and you're going to discover things that weren't there before. Okay? Make sure that you ask the right question at the right time. Okay? And really listen. Ultimately, this all comes down to your ability to communicate. That's really all this is. How effectively can you communicate? How effectively can you really listen? Everyone's got some story to tell. How well can you listen, and how well can you pull it out of them? Okay? All right, so we have an activity here. I did this so well today, guys. Honestly, I'm very pleased with myself. I did 2 lessons in exactly the right amount of time.
Yeah.
I have exactly half an hour left, which is exactly what I wanted. I am rolling. Okay.
Proud of you.
I know. Thank you. Thank you very much. Sorry, you don't get to participate in the activity. I'm going to turn this off now.
Bye.